Welcome to Hockey Night in New York, where Islanders hockey always reigns supreme. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, Hockey Night in New York is your home for all things Isles. Now, let's drop the puck and get this party started.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Hockey Night in New York. Welcome to the program, everyone. We have another very depressing show coming up for you tonight. Thanks for joining us here at Floored Media in Rockville Center. It's going to be a lot of fun. Just joking, folks. With me, as always, is Mr. Stefen Rosner. My name is Sean Cuthbert. Stefen Rosner, how are you today?
The Yankees can mash. They just can mash.
The Yankees. Yeah, we might have to turn our attention to baseball. No. We got a big show coming up for you tonight. Dan Rosen of NHL.com will be joining us. Looking forward to that. Thanks for hanging out with us on a somber Sunday evening after another loss for the New York Islanders. But before we dive into the fun, I want to thank our wonderful sponsors, starting with Main Street Board Game Cafe. Find your crowd and unplug a game at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. We're also proud to be sponsored by Center Station Bar and Grill. Catch every Isles game with great food and drinks at 279A Sunrise Highway in Rockville Center all season long. We're also proud to be sponsored by Razor and Kniff Attorneys at Law, ready to fight for you. Check them out at razorandkniff.com. That is RAISERANDKENNIFF.com for a free consultation. And last but not least, we are proud to be sponsored by Tovi Hockey, the innovative hockey technology company and creators of the Diamond Air Blade. Get 10% off at tovihockey.com with promo code HNINY10. And folks, if you are hanging out with us live in the chat and you want to get your questions in for Questions Brewing, type in Questions Brewing, followed by the question you'd like to ask us, and we will get to it during the segment. And now it's time to talk about the Islanders, starting with experience points. Presented by Main Street Board Game Cafe, where we make our points about the Islanders' experience last week. And what an experience it was, Stefen.
It was a doozy.
Yeah, you go from a 3-0-2 point streak, looking pretty good, get back into the playoff mix. They're still in the playoff mix, but now we're looking at essentially a 5-game losing streak because of those overtime losses. And of course, this weekend does not go well. You have the loss to Vancouver during the week, yesterday and today. Unfortunate showings for the New York Islanders. What do you say?
And the Columbus loss. And it's just incredibly unfortunate because this team looked like they were finding a way to stay in it. We knew about this back-to-back, and we said this was kind of a death back-to-back. Tampa in Tampa, Carolina in Carolina, a day game in Tampa. Just not a recipe for success for this Islanders team, but we saw good things a lot of the time, but then it was just back to bad things, blowing leads again, especially in the third period. I know we have the goalie interference call. We could talk about that until, whatever the expression is. But
okay.
Yeah, it's just not good enough in key moments from everybody. And when you don't have guys like Brock Nelson or Matthew Barzal, I'm not saying those are the only reasons the Islanders are falling. There's a lot more issues than those two.
Sure.
But when you're missing guys like that, you have to be better in other areas. And we're doing a solid job. The defense they brought in, other guys stepping up, Pierre Engvall finding a gear, Holmstrom, all the guys that were getting hot. You were seeing Horvat bury, and then you haven't, Engvall had a great game tonight, but everyone else has kind of really disappeared. And against the elite teams, it's impossible when not everyone's pulling their weight.
Yeah, I think you have to look back at that homestand that they were on, right? And you look at the points that they squandered, right, against Calgary, against Columbus, right? And I definitely want to talk about what happened in Columbus. But, you wanted to see them maybe stock some points in those games, with this weekend coming.
Right.
Right? Because you knew Tampa, Carolina, back-to-back on the road was going to be tough. You might have even been happy stealing a point from one of those teams if you banked some on the homestand. They do none of that. They get 0 points.
They probably should have.
Right. I mean, they gave themselves a chance to, and that's kind of the story of the season so far is, the Islanders are giving themselves a chance.
You know the commercial? I think it's Geico. He's got the dollar.
Sure.
You almost had it. You got to be a little quicker. That's what it feels like. Yeah.
Really what it's been. It's kind of been that kind of season for the Islanders because how many times, if you think back since the start of the season where you're like, all right, this is it, they're done, and then they pull you back in, but never enough where you're feeling good about it. Like how many times did they have that dollar of that 8th seed dangling ahead of them, right? And every time they've tried to reach up and grab it, they've fallen short. And you go back to the Columbus game where Looks like they're going to get a nice little win there right at the end. And then one of life's greatest mysteries, goaltender interference, rears its head once again and robbing the Islanders of the 2 points. Instead, Columbus gets the 2 points and only 1 point for the Isles. Funny enough, the Isles still could have been in a playoff spot going into today before Montreal beat Florida.
Yep. But
didn't work out that way because of this. Now, I said my piece on Twitter about it. Plenty of other people did. Something has to be done. This offseason, something has to be done to clarify goaltender interference, and it's just so that we know what we're looking at, because nobody does.
Yeah.
And if they come up with a rule that tells us why that goal taken away against Columbus, was goaltender interference and shouldn't have been a goal, fine. But let's establish that, because right now we don't have that. We don't know what it is, and it's never gonna be 100% clear cut. The game's so fast, and there's so many circumstances that maybe you can't even account for when a guy's fumbling in front of the net, this and that. But I think they have to find a way to come up with more clear cut rules and maybe guidelines. And for me, I think that almost starts with looking at the top of the goaltender's crease and maybe making that kind of a border. And it is already, but I think the goaltenders need to be a little more accountable and responsible, because I think they're taking advantage
1,000%.
of that threshold. And I think we have to look at it, not that they're fair game and that a player can come in and just bulldoze a goaltender over. I mean, that's interference no matter what, right? But look at two defensemen battling with a forward in front of the net, right? They're not taking penalties, but they're battling. You know what I mean? But they're jostling, right? And I feel like if the goaltender comes out into that space, you're fair game for that jostling. So if you do get kind of interfered with, or you're not able to make the save, if you put yourself in that position, I feel like you took that risk yourself. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple of things with that Columbus goal. But I just want to say we get into a really dangerous part of the game when we assume what goalies can save and can't.
Right.
I think that's really dangerous, because there's obviously saves made where you think they have no chance of making the save, and they do. But if I'm a goalie with the rule that it is right now, I'm forcing contact every game. Every game, like, for example, Matt Rempe, when he was abusing the Islanders in front. If I'm Ilya Sorokin after that first goal goes in, every time Rempe's at the top of the crease, I'm at the top of the crease. On the off chance he makes contact with me and the goal gets
looking at the ref, you see what he did?
But the Columbus game, there's a lot of things went wrong. But the biggest thing that went wrong, and I learned after the fact, is that I believe it's with either 2 minutes or 1 minute left in regulation anytime in overtime. The league automatically reviews all the plays. So if the ref does not call it no goal on the ice, it will get reviewed regardless. No one has to challenge it. And when Toronto looks at that, they probably don't call that a goal, because they look at it and say, okay, it's not conclusive enough to say it wasn't a goal. On the ice, it gets called a goal. That's how it should be. But because the ref called it no goal, Toronto then has to say with 100% certainty, and this is what people I think didn't understand, that they have to now go based on the on-ice ref and say, okay, we have to 100% say that it didn't impact it. If it's the other way around, it's a goal. Right. I don't think Toronto disallows the goal. So I think the concern there is that late in games, unless the ref thinks it's 100% goal interference, he cannot call it no goal on the ice. And that's the mistake I think the ref made. Looking back, I don't think he's going to say it was a mistake.
Sure.
But if you're a ref in that situation, in a big game, in a big moment, leave it up to replay. You're getting reviewed anyway. You know that as a ref in the final minute or 2 minutes, whatever it is, it's getting reviewed. Don't call it no goal, because it's impossible at full speed. Also, if you're a goalie that gets made contact with and then you go out of your way to make contact, that should offset the goalie interference. If you had enough time to push Palmieri there, you had enough time to get set. We saw Tim Thomas, what was it, in a Winter Classic, punch the guy in front and a goal goes in. That's not goalie interference. Once you make the initial move, that's time you wasted getting set. So a lot of things wrong with that play, but late in games, Toronto's going to have to review it anyway. The ref should be calling that a goal and let the other team make their case, whatever it is. But that was the mistake made by the ref there.
Or
you shouldn't have called it.
Or you take a little more power out of the ref's hands in those circumstances because you're right, because the ref called it no goal.
Yeah.
Basically, Toronto was like, well, we don't see enough evidence to necessarily overturn it.
And they have to go against their own
So we're
ref.
going to leave it where it is, right? Which and even like on NHL Network, like their explanation afterwards was essentially that, like, well, it was a coin flip, and because the ref called it no goal, we're just going to go no goal.
But
and
I kind of don't blame them, because they have to see that it's 100% inclusive. Now, I don't think it was goal interference, but if you want to say, based on the rule that they've said numerous times, that I think it was broken down on NHL Network or whatever it is, in theory, by the rule book, Palmieri goes in there on his own, he does make contact, and then you have to do the assumption thing. How much time? It's too much of a gray area. But I really do think if Toronto has to review that and it was called a goal on the ice, there's not 100% clues evidence to say that he was, so I don't think it gets flipped. But it's unfortunate because the Islanders, that's a huge game. And then you see it happen again.
Hell yeah.
It happens to Montreal.
Right.
And then so no one knows. Players are getting frustrated. Bettman said at the GM meetings they did a test where they showed whatever it was, a number of goal interference calls or plays and had them vote on what they thought it was. And apparently the GMs were all, and owners were all in favor of the rule, essentially. Like I think they disagreed on, but everything else was right. So Bettman thinks it's in a good spot. Unfortunately, the more you do this, the more goalies are going to take advantage of it, as they should. These are huge games. That's the problem is what happens. This is one thing in a regular season. What if it comes down to a Game 7 in the playoffs and a team loses based on a questionable goal interference call? That's disastrous.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think there's something needs to be done because clearly, just across the league, if the players are complaining about it too, it's a problem. Right. And not to spend too much more time on this, but yeah, maybe they have to give Toronto a little more power in these calls towards the end of the game where they're like, hey, sorry, ref, don't mean to step on your toes here, but you made the wrong call and we're overturning this one, instead of being like, oh, well, you made the call, so we're just going to let you have it, because again, a critical right. game there. It literally was the difference over the last week, whether the Islanders were or were not in a playoff spot. It brought Columbus back into the mix. They actually ended up getting to sit in the playoff spot for a day or two because of it after they won another game. So it's tough. It's tough on the refs. It's very quick, but it's something they need to figure out because clearly there's just no clarity to it whatsoever.
Should we get to some experience points?
I think we should.
All right, so people are going to be shocked with this because I always say I'm a goalie and I back goalies, right? I'm going negative experience points on Sorokin and Hogberg. And listen, Sorokin hasn't been at his best last couple of games. I did not like a lot of the goals this last few starts, specifically yesterday early on in that game. That changes the whole game. Yeah. And then today for Hogberg, and we'll get to in a second. Patrick Ross spoke about this just a couple of minutes ago. But pretty much Hogberg allowed a couple of goals early. Not saying it's completely his fault, but in those big moments, in these monumental games, you need your goalie to make the save. This is what Patrick Ross said after the game today.
They could maybe start with a couple saves. After that could be decision making, and obviously, on if I look at the last goal, we can't turn over pucks like this and think that the puck would not finish in the back of our net. So yeah.
So the Islanders have allowed 5+ goals in 3 straight games, 6 for the first time in quite some time. But yeah, as the goal, so many times he said this year with Sorokin, he has those great games, but then he gets out goalied by the other team's goalie, who's not to the level he is. But I just think we're finding out that Sorokin is not one of those goalies that could play 60+. And especially, too, coming off the back surgery, you wished they could have helped him out better. They tried. Skarek was unplayable. Hogberg was hurt. Varley got hurt early in November. It's very tough, but at the same time, if Sorokin's going to go in there, they need him to be better. And the defense, of course, has to be better. The offensive players have to finish their chances. But, this team's not good enough to overcome average goaltending. And right now, that's what they're getting.
For sure. And you talk about the defense in front of them. I'm going negative 734 points for Adam Pelech. He had one of the rougher shifts I've ever seen in his career. I thought that second goal has 2 opportunities to clear the puck out of the zone. He was challenged, of course, but doesn't work out. Then he gets beat to the front of the net for that second goal against. Just a rough one for Pelech. He's got to be better back there, especially if you're going to be considered one of the better defensemen on this team.
Yeah, I'll do minus 300 for the goaltending.
Minus 300. Okay,
yeah.
Conservative, but you're making a statement.
Just because it's not all their faults. They don't score goals, even though Sorokin did. But everyone needs to be better. But when your team in front of you is not playing well, that's when you have to rise above it, and the goaltenders haven't.
For sure. So no leveling up for the New York Islanders, and that will do it for Experience Points presented by Main Street Board Game Cafe. Unplug your game and raise your experience at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village on Long Island's North Shore. Games for sale and for open play, food and drink, beer and wine, fun and friends. Bring the magic of phones down, eyes up, tabletop board games to your family. Our staff will help you find the right game from old favorites to the hottest new releases. We have everything from strategic to easy party games. Get off your screens for a night your family will remember. Looking for meetups to join? Our Magic the Gathering, Dungeons and Dragons, Lorcana, and organized play communities are welcoming for all. We also do parties and corporate events located at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. Go to mainstboardgamecafe.com for more information. Main Street Board Game Cafe. Find your crowd. Unplug your game. We're going to break. We'll be right back.
To make your best Florida place to make your visions become a reality. Maybe you want to elevate your podcast and add some video, or turn that novel you wrote into an audiobook, or maybe you just need the right space to produce your daily vlog. Whether you're a seasoned veteran or starting out, or Media has the professional facilities, exceptional staff, and intimate atmosphere to breathe life into your creative passions at every step of the process.
Did you have a nice break? Well, it's time to get back on the couch for more Islanders therapy on Hockey Night in New York.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. You are watching and or listening to Hockey Night in New York, and joining us on the line, presented by Tovi Hockey, the innovative hockey technology company, is none other than Dan Rosen of NHL.com. Dan, welcome back to the show. Hey, Ben.
I'm good. How you guys doing?
Oh, we're doing fantastic.
We're doing just peachy keen, especially as the Islander fan in me is a rough day, a rough weekend for the Islanders. Let's start off, though, a little more broad with this Eastern Conference quote-unquote race that we have going on right now. A slow go. You have, 4 or 5 teams in the mix here. Montreal, Columbus, Islanders, Rangers, Detroit. What do you make of this race, and how do you see it all, I suppose, concluding?
Yeah. Well, listen, Ottawa's really taken some control, and I know they lost today. They get a point, right? But they've really taken control since, really this month, right? Since March 1st, they've really taken control of this. They've gotten good enough goaltending from Linus Ullmark. They've gotten a lot of balanced scoring. They're scoring goals, and that's the biggest thing. The teams that are currently in the wild card position since the Four Nations break have been scoring goals. The teams like Columbus and the Rangers, the Islanders, the Red Wings, they're not scoring. They're not scoring near enough. I know the Islanders got 4 today, and so that's good for them, but they gave up 6, so it doesn't really help, right? But consistent scoring from Ottawa, consistent scoring from Montreal, those are the things that I've noticed from these teams. But Ottawa really has taken control. They've been the team that's jumped out. Montreal did for a little bit. Big win for them today. Kind of one of those playoff, really test yourselves type win. They lost a few games. They get a win today against Florida. Jumped the Rangers. The Rangers, that was a huge point that they lost in Anaheim. I mean, you can't lose that game. You get a lead. You got to get 2 points out of that game. They only get 1, and that's why they're not in a wild card position right now. That's the recency bias of it all, but that's why they're not, right, in the wild card position. So I think it's coming down to, the teams that have, like I said, the teams in the wild card spots right now are the teams that have been able to generate consistent offense.
We know a thing or two about losing games in Anaheim. The Islanders didn't get a point in Anaheim. So, but I think some Islander fans need me to ask you this question just to feel better about themselves before they go to sleep tonight. What has happened to the Rangers this season after what we saw last year from this group?
I guess if your team can't win, you take solace in that, right?
Why not me? The fans.
I'm a Mets fan.
And Sean. Yeah.
I'm a Mets fan, so I'm not happy the Yankees are 3-0 right now and hitting home runs. So I get it, Listen, the Rangers this season, it's just been very inconsistent. Defensively, they have not been good enough. They haven't, they got big seasons out of Panarin, out of Lafreniere, out of Trocheck last year, that line. It has not been the same as it was this season. Lafreniere has sort of disappeared at times. The fact that Zibanejad and Lafreniere and Kreider, I believe, I have to look it up, but none of them are at 20 goals. Kreider might be right around there. Zibanejad is right around there. That's a problem. There was some other, obviously you're dealing with some of their roster turnover, core turnover, if you will. Trouba, that one started over this summer. They waived Barclay Goodrow. He was an important piece for them. I understand why, but he was an important piece for them. But just overall, on the balance of the season for the Rangers, it just simply hasn't been consistent. In fact, at times it's been pretty defensively deficient, have been stuck in their own end a lot this season. And for about 20 games in the middle of the season, they just could not get anything done. And that's the killer for you. They went 4-15 in a 19-game stretch there. Didn't even get a point in those 15 losses. I mean, they were regulation losses. So you add it all up, that's why they're at where they're at right now.
For sure, Dan. And you have a few teams here in this race that have kind of been rebuilding along the same timeline here, right? You talked about Ottawa just before, how they've kind of taken control of that first wild card spot. Then you have teams like Buffalo in there. You have teams like Detroit, Montreal. What's other than the goal scoring that you spoke on, is there anything that stands out for Ottawa, just compared to these teams that they figured it out, but the other teams haven't? Because it seems like, especially, you'll even go back to like Buffalo, but some of these teams have just been in a perpetual rebuild and they just haven't been able to sort it out. And we're finally seeing a team like Ottawa showing the league like, hey, we're here and we're going to make a run here.
Well, Ottawa has been building, and they've added pieces along, big pieces that they've drafted along the way. You go to Brady Tkachuk, Tim Stützle, Jake Sanderson. Thomas Chabot's now a veteran guy, but he's been there a while, and he's a homegrown guy there as well. So there's a lot that's been there that's been building. They just hadn't been able to put it together with some depth around them. They've got a little bit more depth around them right now. And I think a really big thing, and his numbers don't blow you away, but Linus Ullmark being a stalwart goalie, a true number one goalie, a Vezina Trophy winning goaltender, that bleeds confidence through the rest of the team. When they know they've got a guy in net who's going to be stable for them, that bleeds confidence out to the rest of the team. And Ottawa was missing that. That was a big missing ingredient with the Ottawa Senators. And now they have it. And I think you're seeing a more confident team as a result. They're feisty. They're in your face. They follow the lead of their captain, Brady Tkachuk. They score. They have a lot of skill. And I think the trade, Norris bringing in Cousins, that has made a difference. Dylan Cousins in 11 games with them has produced some points. I think he's got 9 or 10 points in that stretch. He's come in fired up, a little bit motivated, and I wondered what that trade would do. Like, you're bringing in a guy who has not won and is not having a good season from a franchise that hasn't been able to get it done, and he seems to be motivated by being in a playoff race and understanding that, he's a part of this now, and he doesn't have to be a 20-minute-a-night guy. He's a 16-minute-a-night guy, and it's really benefited him, I think. So that's one thing with Ottawa. Buffalo, it's just constant turnover. There just has not. Here's
on the ice, off the ice.
People always look at this and they say, well, you got to lose to learn how to win again, right? And so we're seeing it in San Jose. We're seeing it in Chicago. We're seeing it in Anaheim. What that does is it brings a losing culture along with you. So guys like Rasmus Dahlin and JJ Peterka and Tage Thompson and all these guys, they're developing and they're getting better and they're doing those things, but it's a losing culture. It's a losing environment around them. And I don't want to say it's not okay. It's not accepted, but it becomes what they know. And how do you change that? I don't know. I'm not 100% sure how you change that. But Ottawa has been able to do a little bit of change there. Something clicked with the Senators right around the beginning. Coming out of Four Nations, they went into the Four Nations break with a couple of losses in a row. They came out with a couple of losses in a row. But something clicked. And they have a guy that you can jump on his back in Brady Tkachuk. And you want to ride, he's that type of guy. Buffalo doesn't have that guy, but it happens all the time. It's why a rebuild takes a long time. Because these guys, they bring in young guys, and these young guys are growing up in losing environments. Yeah. They don't know what it is to win. And when you have that, you get what Buffalo's going through right now. Detroit's a different story. They got a lot of free agents. It's not a team built through the draft. They have some young guys that they're bringing up. But, to me, what's happening in Detroit is the same thing that happened in Detroit last year. A lot of veteran guys hitting a wall at the wrong time.
Yeah, I think we need to see Brady Tkachuk in the playoffs, though. That'll be pretty exciting.
Looks like we will.
Yeah.
Dan, next one for me here is back-to-back years we're seeing Ilya Sorokin down the stretch in the season. I know he lost the starting job last year, and then he had back surgery, but back-to-back years where it doesn't look like the workload is something he really can't handle, maybe being a 60-game goalie game played guy year in and year out. Do you think he can do that? And if not, what do the Islanders have to do? Is it they have Hogberg under contract for one more season, but do they have to go out and get maybe a 1B instead of a stereotypical backup for him if Varlamov can't return?
Well, that was the thing. I mean, if Varlamov was healthy, you wouldn't be seeing this much run for Sorokin, right? So that you got to put it into perspective. You have a number one guy and you have a number two guy. When your number two guy goes out, your goaltending depth gets tested. And when you're in a playoff race, you got to ride your number one guy. And it's not surprising that they've done that. It's certainly not surprising that Patrick Roy has done that because he wanted to play all the time when he was a player, right? And he grew up and he played in an era where goalies played all the time. the game's changed. It's a little bit different. The goaltenders are battling more. There's more in your face in the goaltender. They're positioning. They're battling more for their position in their crease. The speed of the game has changed, and it impacts a goaltender. It's why you don't see goalies playing a lot of back-to-backs right now. And I honestly think that the magic number for a number one, a true number one, which Sorokin is probably 55. If you go north of that, you're running into wear and tear. You're running into a tired goalie at times. And I understand why you're running them out there as much as they are, because you're in a playoff race and you don't have your number two in Varlamov. But it's a hard run. That's why you need to see a little bit more. You especially need to see more balance at the start of the year. However, I still don't think that matters so much, because if you balance it out at the start of the year and then you ride your goalie from February on to the end, he could be at 57 starts, but 20 of them could have come in a 24-game stretch at the hardest time of the year, and that's hard to do. So you've got to be able to balance it out more through the course of the season. There's a few guys that doesn't matter. Hellebuck it doesn't matter with. Vasilevsky it doesn't matter with. Those guys seem to be the old school way, but some of these they're also bigger guys too. Let's not forget that they can handle, maybe their bodies handle it a little bit better, but it's rare now to see a goalie 60-plus games regularly be an effective goalie down the stretch when he's north of that.
Yeah, Dan, without question. And before you came on, Steph and I were talking about this rough stretch that the Islanders have been in, now loses of 5 games in a row. And you go across, the season from the start, and there's been plenty of moments over the course of that where you could say, okay, it's not their year. Maybe this is time where they bow out, right? And now you get to more recent history, and they have some struggles. They have injuries. But despite those injuries, despite trading away Brock Nelson, this is a team that's found a way to stay in it, right? And resiliency has kind of been a theme of this team recently. And what does that say about, I suppose, Patrick Waugh, the coaching staff, and the players that, despite all of that, this is a team that may very well be playing until game 82 with a chance to make the playoffs?
To me, what it says is you've got a bunch of players who care deeply and have not quit on their coach, and that says a lot about the coach and the relationship the coach has with the players. And I think I think Patrick's honest, but very rarely, and Steph, you know better than me, but very rarely is he throwing a guy under the bus, right? I mean, he's praising more than he's criticizing publicly. We don't know what he's doing privately, but to me, it says that you got a bunch of players that care deeply, like I said, and they have not quit on their coach, and their coach has not quit on them, and that's good for the future. That's good for going forward. But the team needs more talent. Like, it just needs more talent. Let's be honest. Just don't have enough. They don't have a game breaker. They don't have enough. Barzal's injury, killer. Varlamov's injury, we touched on it, killer, right? I get it. I get all that. But other teams have had big injuries too. And some of them have been able to push on a little better than the Islanders have. They have that nice stretch there, but now they've lost 5 in a row. So I think it's good for Patrick and his future with the team, but the team needs more talent.
Yeah, and that brings me to my next question. Lou at his post-trade deadline presser said there will be changes this summer. You think big changes are coming, or do you think this is a group where maybe they add 1 or 2 pieces and try to do what they did this summer and kind of run this group back? Is that, I guess what I'm trying to ask is that possible to do again without making major changes?
No, I mean, I think that they need to look at a major addition. I do. I think they need to look at a major kind of game-changing addition for this team, a spark. That's the one thing. The Islanders under Lou Lamoriello have been pretty steady with their lineup, with their roster. There's obviously been some turnover, but they've been pretty steady with their lineup and their roster as guys have come in and whatnot. But teams are missing a spark. That's what I think. I think and I've thought this for a while. So I think big changes would be a big change, like bringing in a guy or two that spark this team, that can be the game changer. Make a big trade, shake things up. The core is decent, but clearly we're seeing it. It's not good enough, right? I don't necessarily know that it's a depth problem. I think it's a core talent problem. And I don't want to rip the team for it. I think they're I love Andersley. I love Kyle Palmieri. Those guys can play on my team any day of the week, but they need help. They're aging. They're up there. Bo Horvat's a really, really good player, but Bo Horvat as your secondary guy, your number 2 guy, would be even better, right? So that's kind of what I look at. And if Lou is saying big changes are coming, then I got to believe what Lou's saying.
Well, we will find out when the summer comes. We have a playoff chase going on until then. But, Dan, always a pleasure having you on the show. Really appreciate it, and look forward to next time.
Good. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
You got it.
Thanks,
absolutely.
Dan.
All right, folks, that was Dan Rosen of NHL.com. Great stuff from him. That'll do it for On the Line, presented by Tovi Hockey. Stefen, why don't you tell us a little bit more about those guys?
Let me do that. Tovi Hockey, the innovative hockey technology company, is the creator of the 100% solid carbon fiber Diamond Air blade, the only other NHL-approved blade technology with superior feel and increased swing speed due to its perforated design, unparalleled control thanks to the micro-grip blade texture, greater durability courtesy of its patented aerodynamic cross-beam construction, and unparalleled shooting accuracy thanks to its large sweet spot. Tovi Hockey is changing the game by making the next-gen stick of tomorrow available today. Go to ToviHockey.com, check out their great selection of sticks, gear, and apparel, and use promo code HNINY10 for 10% off your order. Tovi Hockey, stronger, faster, superior.
ToviHockey.com, HNINY10 for 10% off of your order. We're going to take one more break. When we come back, it's time for What's on Tap.
Islanders fans, Sunday night is hockey night in New York. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, tune in to Hockey Night in New York. Catch us live from Floored Media in Rockville Center, Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, as we cover all things Islanders at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. All episodes are also available on YouTube and all your favorite podcast providers. And for all you social butterflies, you can follow at Hockey Night NY on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for all the latest updates. Hockey Night in New York, the best night of the week for any Islanders fan. Thanks for giving some time to our sponsors. Ready to talk more Isles? The train rolls on right here on Hockey Night in New York.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. The train rolls on right into Center Station Bar and Grill, located at 279A Sunrise Highway in Rockville Center. That's right. Speaking of Center Station, Ed, I heard Center Station was involved in a little wing competition. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, it happened.
Thank you, Ed.
It happened.
Okay, great.
Out of 64 bars and grills, restaurants across the island, they made it to the Final Four.
Wow.
And it was held at Barrier Brewing.
Okay, cool. Good spot.
Mike would hate me to say that they came in second, but that's a really high spot.
We don't lie in
That's
this
a
show.
really high spot.
Silver Chalice, man.
We
That's
were
not
all
bad.
there. We were all
Silver
there for
medal.
that.
Yeah.
But it was great. They have great wings.
That's awesome. Now, did they get a trophy or a medal or a prize?
I don't think
for
Mike would have
second place?
accepted a second place.
So if you're not first, you're last.
Yeah, but he graciously congratulated the winner.
Okay.
But I feel wrong for saying the winner during this segment.
Big congrats to Center Station Bar and Grill for second place. And folks, if you haven't been there yet, for the Islander games, for the live events, go for the wings. Second place on Long Island. Good stuff. All right, now let's talk about what's on tap, Stefen Rosner. You ready for that?
Yeah, second place, first place teams are on tap. Yeah, no, it's another hard one.
It sure is.
Yeah, it's not good.
Yeah, you got home games, though. You got 3 home games, another little homestand here to maybe get a couple of points, which we'll see. But it all starts Tuesday. The Tampa Bay Lightning, you might be familiar with them. They come to town on Tuesday for a 7:30 puck drop. That is April Fool's Day. We'll see who the fool is that night. Then Friday the 4th, Minnesota comes to town. Again, another very, very tough opponent. And then Sunday, a 12:30 matinee for the Islanders. We know how well the Islanders do with matinees. The Washington Capitals will come to town. Maybe by then, Alex Ovechkin is trying to tie the record there. You never know. Pot a couple between now and then, and we could be seeing history, but it might be a little later. They're still on track for the second game in April, right?
Yeah, I mean, he could do an Ovechkin trick and just dominate. But, this week's tough. Tampa, the Islanders cannot start this one late. I mean, they started this one late.
That would be nice.
On Saturday. Yeah. It is a night game, so 7:30 puck drop. Just throw that out there.
Time for a nap, yeah.
Time for a nap.
Yeah.
But Tampa, the elite teams, you cannot not be ready to go.
As we've seen.
We could say they weren't ready or just they didn't get the, whatever it is. You can't go down 2-0 early to that team. Right. Also, John Cooper pulled an April Fool's joke Saturday. We'll see if he pulled it Tuesday. Vasilevsky led the Lightning out on Saturday.
Yes.
And then started Johansson. And Johansson is not a good goaltender, but he played like Vasilevsky in that game.
Of course.
Fantastic performance. I would assume Vasilevsky gets the game on Tuesday. Very talented goalie. But this is the team. The Islanders just got cooked by them. Too many easy plays. Kucherov comes off the bench and does that little shimmy move. I mean, just too much was going on where they make you confused in the D zone, and they're just too talented. And you can make a mention about what Kucherov did.
Speaking of Kucherov, we didn't get to this during experience points, but what did you make of the play at the end there with the open net?
Well, obviously his goal was hit his man backdoor, but you just have to finish that. Because if the Islanders go down and score that, I'm not saying Kucherov doesn't play in overtime because there's no way Cooper is benching him, but that is treasonous.
Yeah, that was borderline treason. That's true.
And the Islanders, and they had a chance. Horvat had a chance. Was it Palmieri to Horvat backhander?
Right
Johansson?
In front of the net.
I mean, he put that in the correct spot because Johansson's glove's there to try to get under it, and backhands are tough to read.
Yeah.
He made a good save on it, but I mean, Horvat's been snake bitten in these big moments.
I mean, as much as I wanted the Islanders to tie the game, for obviously his points in the standings, but once Kucherov pulled that thing off, I was like, please make him pay. I want to see the post-game presser. I want to see all of that if everything blew up in Kucherov's face there. But, of course, the Islanders didn't pull through.
And you saw with Kucherov get slashed earlier, I think it was in the first period, he gets slashed on the bench, and then he goes out for the line change right after that and makes the move that leads to he didn't get the assist on it, but I think it was the Perbix goal. I mean, Kucherov's a menace out there, and you can't lose him. And I think the Islanders they got to put like one of those tags on him, the air tags?
Sure.
Just find there he is. And you just got to, I think that's the best way to do it.
He's a guy you got to mark.
Put it in his stick.
Why not?
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Minnesota.
How about Minnesota?
5-4-1 in their last 10, so they're struggling to find that consistency, but they're an elite hockey team that have also dealt with injuries. Probably last time the Islanders will see Marc-Andre Fleury ever. It will be the last time, so we'll see what they do for him. The Islanders obviously...
Classy of Ovechkin the other night.
It was
bring
very
the guys
classy.
Out. Yeah.
But, I mean, I remember Fleury where he gets pulled in the playoff series and Vukun comes in. Was that against Nabokov?
Yeah.
That was when Nabokov dropped in the
Fleury
shot.
was in a very fragile mental state in that series.
But he has been an absolute legend. So that'll be cool and just see his last game and whether he gets a thank you or the Islanders after the game, which Lee will probably do and go and shake his hand. He's been
Kinda
awesome.
Has to now.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
He has been so awesome for the sport of hockey. And then we look to the Capitals. Ovechkin's 5 goals away with 3 games before that game. We already talked about it last show. It better not be an empty net. It better not be a reviewed goal.
Yes, please. Yes.
We again, not against the Islanders, but power play one-timer from his spot would be the icing on the cake for him. But the Capitals have had a dominant season. They're coming down to the stretch where they're trying to get ready for that playoff run and that playoff grind, given what happened in the last playoff. So that's a team that's not going to mail it in. It's not a Sunday game where they're going to... maybe they're not going to rest players, but they need to be in tip-top shape going into the playoffs. So that's 3 really tough games. Look back to the Anaheim game where they lost. We look back to this past home stretch where you had to get points or even get points on the road here where they had chances. They were in all these games and they just blew it themselves.
Right.
So now if they want to be in the playoffs, I mean, Hickey was joking about it post-game, but 8-1 in their last 9 last year. Here we go. They have to. You have to think.
Yeah, 8-1-1 in their last 10. This is the final 10-game stretch of the season for the Islanders. And you have to figure if these games go as you would expect based on the records. And this is it would probably spell the end for the Islanders, assuming, the other teams that they're competing with, don't lose all their games too, which we've seen happens.
I mean, the Rangers...
They could go 0-3 and still be in it.
You saw the back-and-forth Canucks Blue Jackets game, which is probably one of the wildest games I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Doesn't go in the Islanders' favor. They were close to another night where it was just perfect. But the problem is you can only do that for so long. They control their own fate statistically. I don't know if they do it anymore now after the loss today, but they had it where they didn't have to win out. They just had to.
Right.
They win that one game. What was it? Thursday, and then they could have won Saturday. Where they're in once they were in a playoff spot, because the game's in hand, they controlled it. Not saying they went out and make the playoffs, but then you could at least say, all right, we're in control. We don't have to worry about the scoreboard every night. They don't take advantage, and when you don't take advantage this point in the season, it's really tough. But you want to rule this team out. They just find a way to, like you said, bring it to game 82 or game 81.
Right.
And you've said it numerous times. If they're going to find a way in, they're going to freaking earn it.
Yeah, and now they're in a position where you look at these 3 games up ahead. They have to take points out of these games now. You don't got to take 6. It'd be nice. You probably won't. But you got to take something out of these games because, just to stay afloat and then see what you can do. Maybe you get some luck. They've had a lot of luck from the other teams where they just haven't been able to take command of that spot. And, they're a little fortunate they have some games in hand on the Rangers. I think really for me, the team that they got to worry about is Montreal. Because Montreal's beaten good teams. They look really hungry. I think if there's going to be a team that takes this spot away from the Islanders, it's going to be them.
What sucks is the playoff format. You're not going to get a Toronto-Montreal series if they make it.
Yeah, right,
That's
right.
tough.
But we could get a Toronto-Ottawa series, which would be a nice consolation prize.
But it's not Toronto-Montreal.
I agree.
You want that.
But I would love to see Brady Tkachuk pissing off the Toronto Maple Leafs in a 7-game series.
I would love to see Ottawa play Florida at some point.
Sure.
That'd be fantastic.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Tkachuk brothers.
Either one.
I guess we're all hoping the Islanders find a way to spoil things there. But it's a tough week, and unfortunately, it's a tough week and a must-win week given what they didn't get done last week.
For sure, and I'm going to skip ahead a little bit to Thursday, April 10th. We said it last week. Once again, viewing party coming back to Borelli's Tap Room in Long Beach for Islanders Rangers. That's a 7:30 puck drop. We're going to do a pregame show at 6 o'clock, and it looks like this game just might have a lot of meaning. So Isles Rangers, if you can't make it to UBS Arena, we'll be hanging out at Borelli's Tap Room in Long Beach. Come on down. Always a great time.
Fantastic.
There we go. That's going to do it for What's on Tap, presented by Center Station Bar and Grill. Catch great food and drinks, live events, Isles games at 279A Sunrise Highway in Rockville Center. And now we go to the hero of the week. And what a great week for heroes, huh, Stefen?
We had a lot to pick from. Yeah,
we really did.
A lot.
What do you got for us?
Adam Boqvist for me. Let's take the positives here because it's been a week of negatives. But in 2 games as a forward, he's got three assists.
Yeah.
He's been killing it. But when he plays defense, he's also been killing it. And I think you saw it. He comes back in against Tampa. Mike Riley comes out. Not saying Mike Riley did anything wrong. 2 points, I think, in 6 games since coming back. But, you need a difference maker back there. Boqvist has brought a lot of energy, but he's been so good in all 3 zones. We know we could do offensively. But his mobility in the defensive zone is what Patrick Roy loves. And I know Mike Riley does that too, but I think Boqvist had more of a spark, more energy. He's trying to prove something. I mean, Mike Riley's also trying to prove something. A lot of these other D, but
sure.
Boqvist earned play tonight to play with Romanov on the top pairing. I have to see what the minutes breakdown was, but he's just been fantastic. And I think he's one of those guys that's really looking to find a way to be a guy the Islanders choose to bring back next year. And I thought he had a great couple of games this past week, and I think it's good to see because we talked about these games matter whether they make the playoffs or not. There's so many people fighting for jobs, and you want to see when Waugh gives certain players extra minutes, like Engvall taking advantage. Not saying that impacts what they do with him this summer, but Boqvist is a guy that, he was drafted by Columbus. They kind of get rid of him. He goes to Florida. He barely plays. He comes here, and he really had no reason to come out of the lineup because everyone got healthy. And now down the stretch, and I wrote a column for the Almonters, he should be playing every game. There's no reason to take him out. So for that, he is my hero of the week.
Hero of the week. There you go. Mine, once again, having to reach given the losses, but Pierre Engvall. 2 goals today, kept the Islanders in it. Obviously, they fell short. Also had a goal against, Columbus earlier in the week. The guy has 8 goals on the season. 3 of them have come in the last 4 or 5 games.
That's almost 50%, but not.
Nearly, yes. Yeah. Good math there, Stefen. Proud of you.
Is that 40%?
Yeah, roughly, something like that. Maybe.
I'm
not here to do that right now.
Jake,
I don't want to waste everybody's time.
That's fair.
For crying out loud.
Sorry.
But, as nice as it is to see, it's also frustrating because Pierre Engvall shows that he has the talent and he has the skill, but this disappearing act that he does over the course of the season is also very discouraging. And you look at what he's doing right now, and you don't want it to be like fool me once, fool me twice, where...
Shame on you.
Yeah, yes.
Thank you.
Where, is this a guy who they hang on to now because he's showing promise once again? Or is this a guy who they may have to consider, whether it's demoting, to Bridgeport, whether it's buying him out, whether it's trying to find a trade partner? Good luck with that. But is this a guy that they're actually going to make a roster spot available for next year? Or do they look at this as one of those mirages, like, okay, buddy, thanks a lot. You're doing well. You're helping us out right now. But, we're not convinced you can do this over an 82-game season. I mean, look, it's good that he's doing it. It'd be nice if he does it from here until the end because, look, they're going to need him.
Yep.
If they are going to make the playoffs this year, they're going to need him. They're going to need him to put some more goals on the board because you're missing the Brock Nelsons of the world and whatnot. But, I guess small kudos to him for today. 2 goals, kept him in the game. Unfortunately, wasn't enough.
What's crazy, and I don't think we would have said this early on, is we need more people playing like Engvall right now. The Islanders need more Engvalls, and one of the players that they need to mimic Engvall is Duclair. I mean, Duclair's not moving his feet, not getting involved, and Pierre Engvall, whether he's not hitting, but every time he gets the puck now, the issue with him was him going south and messing up. North. And then when he has a shooting lane, he's letting it rip. I think it was 91.6 miles per hour in his second goal.
Something.
But he's cutting to the slot. I think, not going to lie, he's probably watching Siplikov and what he's doing. He cuts to that slot, he puts the brakes on, and he lets it go. And he's obviously in the NHL because he can do a lot of different things, but everyone in the NHL can rip the puck. Depends if they do it in the big moments and hit their mark. And Engvall is finding the corners. He's shooting, under the glove, the first goal off the rush. He's dangerous every shift, and that's why he's getting more minutes. And the problem, like you said, it's frustrating because he could do this every game. And if you're not scoring, and this is the same thing with Duclair, is that even if you're not going to find the back of net, speed is such. Look at Michael Grabner. You could say no team wanted him because he was inconsistent, but so many teams brought him in because at the end of the day, was a threat on the forecheck, threat in the penalty kill, or just he takes time and space. He forces the opponent to pay attention to him, and Engvall is doing that whether he's scoring or not. That line is so effective because you have Cizikas and Fasching forechecking, then Engvall is going to the right spots and letting it rip, and you're not seeing that from Duclair. Some other guys you need to see more of that from. So it's crazy to say, given what we've seen, but if more players were playing like Engvall down the stretch, the Islanders are probably in a playoff spot.
Didn't think those words were going to come out of your mouth, but would you say that Pierre Engvall is ripping shots like Aaron Judge is ripping home runs right now for the Yankees?
But Pierre Engvall is not using a what are the bats called?
Don't start.
Torpedo. I'm a Yankee fan. They're torpedo bats. They're legal, but yeah.
I've never heard of those.
Okay, but anyway, unlike the Yankees, they're using torpedo bats. Engvall has this the whole time. He doesn't have to change a thing.
True.
He just has to bring it consistency.
True. He's just
I love how
using a
you're trying with
composite stick.
baseball. I love it.
Right. Well, you guys were talking about it before the show, so I figured why not bring it in?
Yeah. You're boring the people more.
I don't know. Maybe they like baseball.
But anyway, Pierre Engvall,
Pierre just needs a nice Toby hockey stick. That's all he
Pierre
needs.
needs a Toby hockey stick, yes.
There we go. I love it. There you go. Add another 10 miles per hour.
I just got a pay raise.
Right on. So that will do it for Hero of the Week, Pierre Engvall, Adam Boquist, in a tough week for the New York Islanders. And now I'm going to tell you all about Isles Fix. That's right, folks. Islanders Country, get your daily fix of Isles news, highlights, and analysis by subscribing to Isles Fix, the Monday through Friday Islanders newsletter sent directly to your inbox. Sign up for free or become a paid subscriber for added benefits at islesfix.substack.com. And now we take it to the Snake Den.
Welcome to the Snake Den with Jake the Snake Ritanis.
That's right, folks. It's time to go to the place where Jake hangs out, and we call it the Snake Den. Jake, how you doing, pal?
I'm doing good. Baseball's back, but we won't talk about it. I'm
wearing
You're wearing the jersey. You're excited. Look at you. Now, what player is that?
This is Pete Alonso.
Pete Alonso. He hasn't played for the team in a long time, right?
He's their starting first baseman. But
okay.
We'll give you the E for effort.
Can you mute his mic, please?
We'll move on.
Jake, continue.
You know what? I mixed him up with what was his name? Alfred.
Alfonso?
Yes,
there you go.
That's exactly right.
A lot of points for that.
That's so funny.
Wait, what did he say?
Alfonso Soriano?
Edgardo
Alfonso.
Yeah. That's
if he came back and
hilarious.
That's a good one.
That's so funny. Well, look, the Mets are back. You're excited. That's cool. You know, there's a lot of games left in the season. Anything can happen, right? That's 1,000, true. Give or take. But Jake, you're here for a hockey take. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, I'm never going to write this team off because they just keep kind of coming back and then leaving and then coming back. You know, they do it every year. They like to do that.
Yeah, so very indecisive.
Instead of talking about the team currently, I wanted to talk about some prospects.
Okay,
so,
great.
The Frozen Four is coming up. Penn State, who actually just won in overtime over UConn.
Okay.
That's their first time making the Frozen Four. They're taking on Boston University, where Cole Iserman plays. And then Western Michigan is they're playing Boston College or Denver. That game's playing right now. But with Boston University, Cole Iserman is having a year. He in their last game, he had 2 goals and an 8-3 win over Ohio State to send them to the Frozen Four.
Very nice.
And this year, 34 points in 37 games played, 23 goals, 11 assists, 10 goals are on the power play as well. He leads, most goals for a freshman. So with 23, the next guy after him is 18.
Okay,
it's a nice margin.
He's letting it rip, and tied 8th overall in the NCAA in goals. And then he's not in the tournament, but Quinn Finley also having an outstanding season, 40 points. 20 goals and 20 assists in 37 games.
Love that.
His season's over now, but just to be able to see scoring and offense from 2 young prospects when we have a team where a lot of people talk about the age of the team and obviously losing a guy like Brock Nelson, to be able to see some younger prospects who are showing up. We'll see if it translates when they eventually get to the NHL.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a positive sign. And that game, Penn State and Boston University, is on April 10th, which is Islanders-Rangers. But
Borelli's.
But maybe Cole Eiserman will score a big goal in that one as well.
Yeah.
Camille Bednarik, who's also on BU, he might not have the points and stuff, but when we talked with him at the draft, he reminded us of like his skill set of Bo Horvat, a two-way guy, Pajot, a two-way guy. He's been a great two-way player for them. He just does the little things that no one talks about, but helps your team win. And that's important because eventually you're going to need those guys to fill in to be middle six, bottom six centers.
For sure. And the thing that stuck out for me was the power play production. Because the Islanders need that because it's true. They do. It continues to be dreadful. And they give up that shorthanded goal today, which was very non-helpful.
4-minute power play.
4-minute power play turned into 4 minutes of misery today. Yeah, that was unfortunate.
Like a poem.
Maybe I'll work on that after the show. I'll try to flesh that one out.
Yeah, haiku.
All right, Jake, let's get a prediction from you. What do you think this week? 3 tough opponents, all at home. It's all on the line, and the Islanders have done well with their backs against the wall.
They have. And I did swing and miss like pretty bad last week.
You did, but that's okay. We won't hold it against you.
Go 1-1-1.
Conservative.
We'll throw that up.
Who are they beating?
Tampa, I think they're going to lose to in regulation.
Good call.
Didn't have to think hard about that one.
No, that was not at all. I think they'll beat Minnesota in regulation.
Okay, in regs.
And then the Caps, I think they will take it to overtime, and it's going to be a heartbreaking loss.
Ovechkin in overtime?
Ovechkin.
For the record?
Yeah, I can't say that. But Ovechkin scored in that game for sure, whether it's to tie it, break it, or just to get it.
I just hope Watt challenges it no matter what.
Yes, we need that. Beauvillier assists Ovechkin's goal.
It's written in the stars. Yeah. That's probably exactly what's going to happen.
I'll go 1-1-1.
1-1-1. All right, Jake. Wonderful take. Thanks for partaking in the program today. We're going to move on now to Questions Brewing.
It's time for Questions Brewing.
So go ahead.
Ask us a question.
I love how you guys have embraced the intro here to Questions Brewing. It's like a harmonious chorus now that we have.
Harmonious.
Yeah. Right?
Is that the word?
Sure, it is today.
Okay.
Ed, Jay, how we doing, boys?
Jay? Thumbs up from Jay.
Jay doom scrolling through Instagram right now?
How did you know? You're always over there, so that's a great guess.
I know Jay Belsky.
I won't out him.
I know Floored Media.
But that was a great guess. But yes, I've been enjoying this seesaw of a season as much as anybody has.
Okay.
We've just been on the we haven't moved up in the past 2 games.
Right.
But anyway, questions.
Yeah, let's brew them up.
Questions. We'll start off with Nate here. He said, could the NHL use former players to help decide on goalie interference or even 5-minute majors since they know more about what's going on, like Paros with player safety?
1,000%. They should probably do it. But again, using former players is a different game now. Mm-hmm. If you talk to Patrick Roy, we talked about it. He was fighting with all those guys. That's not the same game. That being said, I would use forwards that used to crash the net. Like Mike Rupp was a net front guy. Go get net front guys, and they could talk about how much their job was to get in front of the goalie and interfere and get goalies that were probably more aggressive. For example, like a Henrik Lundqvist sat back in his crease. Probably not the guy to talk goalie interference with, because you need goalies that were aggressive and how much it really impacts them and things like that.
So maybe a goalie interference panel, but I feel like if you're going to have guys who used to crash the net and be in front of it, you got to counterbalance that with goaltenders, because they need to have their...
No, that's what I'm saying. You get goalies that were aggressive at the top of the crease, not the ones that sit back. But like George Paris, he's player safety and he's a fighter. Get guys that interfere with goalies.
I don't think George Paris is doing a good job. with NHL player safety. I think
that's a fair point.
Two great mysteries of the NHL right now are goalie interference and suspensions and discipline up and down. You just don't know what kind of fine a guy's going to get, how many games they're going to get, and I feel like that is just as mysterious as goaltender interference. So maybe you don't go that route. Yeah. I don't know.
All right, so we're going to get
he was an
bench
example,
players that
not
never
the best
played.
example, but an example.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I don't know how you figure it out. That's the biggest thing is how do you figure it out? Obviously, goalies want the interference penalty.
Me being the cynic that I am, like I wonder if the NHL likes the gray area, and I wonder if they like being able to, not to say that they're, look, I'm not going to sit here and say the league is fixing games. I don't believe that. I don't think so. But at the same time, it just, to me, it feels like they don't seem to mind that there is so much gray area because
they don't. I mean, they talked about it. They were comfortable and satisfied that the NHL, the GM said the NHL was doing a good enough job.
And even though they have fans screaming, whether you're an Islander fan, a Ducks fan, nobody knows what it is. And everybody's like, can we get some consistency here? Because again, you get somebody to do a clip of all the controversial goaltender interferences in the season. I guarantee you sit some fans down or even some players down and say, okay, let us know which is which. And the answers are going to be all over the place. And there's not going to be any consistency.
Well, what's crazy is this is the insane part is that they did that with the GMs. They went through film by film. And I think they said 95% all agreed on each one.
That's what they said, Stefen.
Yeah, I wasn't there. I don't know.
Right.
Bevan wouldn't lie.
No, maybe not. No, listen, I'm not trying to get tinfoil hat here or anything like that. But at the same time, I feel like there's still a way to establish some more black and white, instead of all the gray that we have. Because I just think it's a problem that you can look at literally calls within the same game. Look at the Islanders-Columbus game, right? Anders Lee had a situation in front of the net. They ended up calling that a goal, and some Blue Jackets fans are like, why wasn't that interference, right?
Right.
And sure, there's always going to be bias for your own team and whatnot, but I think even if you have people looking at these calls objectively, I think there's just still way too much of a spectrum of, one instance it is interference, one instance is not, and nobody can just definitively say, oh yeah, that is absolutely clear-cut goaltender interference because a ref, another game, another night is calling it the other way.
Well, funny enough, the same ref was the one that had the game in Columbus with Vancouver when Columbus had a goal, or it was Montreal, whatever happened next with the goal interference, it was the same ref.
Well, how about that?
Next.
Dale S. asks, why did Lou hold on to Palmieri?
Simple. You could not have an empty UBS arena with 20-plus games to go. And I think if you trade Palmieri and Brock, you're in trouble. But also, Palmieri wants to stay, and we talked about this before, and he's probably going to take a team-friendly deal. And if you want to be better next year and you don't want to take steps back, you need a 30-goal scorer, potential 30-goal scorer still here. And if whether Palmieri is on your second line or third line, he still makes an impact. Could they have traded him? Yes, but I think Lou looked at it as, is it worth trading Palmieri for a late second to just move him when he wants to come back? Because if Palmieri leaves, then you have to replace a 30-goal scorer. Well, you could say, well, Holmstrom could be that guy, and Sipakov could be that guy. But, I mean, Palmieri's been really consistent with what he produces. He's going to be a 20-plus goal scorer every year. So I think him at a team-friendly deal makes a lot of sense. But if you're not going to trade Palmieri, that's why this summer, you got to trade other guys. It can't be we're bringing Palmieri back and doing nothing.
There's those reasons, and also Lou did say he looked at other deals.
Yeah.
And he had a very specific want.
Right.
And he wanted prospects. He wanted top prospects. And may have just come down to the fact that he got offers for Palmieri, but he didn't like what they were offering, so he said better to just hang on to him.
1,000% happened. He definitely got offers.
Yeah, and he probably said better to hang on to him for this season and then also in an attempt to keep him around, hopefully, at a reasonable deal.
The biggest reason is that he wanted to make the playoffs. And if you trade 2 30-goal scorers, you're not doing that. You trade one, there's a chance. Obviously, it's not panning out probably right now, but if the Islanders are going to make the playoffs, Palmieri was going to be a huge part of it.
Yes, agreed.
Next up from Craig, regular human bartender, he says, do I drink the bleach or just rub it into my eyes? Is it not apparent that it's time to bring up the kids and see how hungry they are?
What kids? What kids?
Jeez.
I don't know. Well, first of all, I wouldn't recommend putting bleach in any part of your body. I'm going to start with that. But I understand. It's a tough watch, but thankfully the rest of the Eastern Conference refuses to win games at a consistent basis, and the Islanders are still in it. So as long as you don't feel too tortured by the pull and push and pull and whether they're in it or not, Hopefully, they can actually stay in the race and maybe give some meaningful games to watch. If not, then I don't know, Stefen, who would they even call up? Who would they even bring up to?
Adam Beckman scored again today, or was it yesterday? This kid came over in the Dennis Chalowski deal, and he's been really good. He's probably the only one that's quote-unquote earned the call-up. Beckman, the question is, if the Islanders do fall out of it, they should be giving these guys looks. Beckman, even if they haven't been good, Jeffries, Maggio, just get him up here. I wouldn't say defense-wise, because you let Isaiah George play a lot of minutes. He already came up and proved what he can do. But just see what you got. You have no idea. I mean, no one expected George to come up and do what he did. Who knows? You call it Maggio, who struggled this year consistently, and he finds a home or something. Who knows? And then you realize next year, it's like with Watt. If you brought in Watt to start the year, then you don't really know what it's like with a training camp with him, whatever it is. But you bring him in months ahead of time. He gets to establish what he wants. You get to get a feel for him and how he... So I think these next 9 games, it's important to see what you got if you are out of it. The question is, we know for the Islanders' sake, if they're not out of it, they're not going to call him.
Exactly. You can't do it until they're really at a point where you're like, okay, they're done.
Which they probably won't be.
They probably won't. So...
Next up from Andre, he asks, what is the problem with Duclair? He continues to be invisible. It has to be more than the injury. At the end of the day, there is a reason why he has been on nine teams in 11 years.
Well, I think the 9 teams in 11 years is partially because he's his own agent. I don't think he worked out that's kind of tough in today's day and age to be your own agent.
Fair point.
But he's not moving his feet. And obviously the injury was a factor. But at some point, you got to find a way to be effective. If you're good enough to play in the games, you got to do something to help your team win. And unfortunately, he had some hot streaks and then cold streaks. But right now, when he's struggling, he's not moving his feet. And when that's your best asset, that cannot happen. I don't want to say you're useless if you're not doing that. But if your biggest skill set you're not using to your advantage, even if it's at 90%, like the thing is, we've seen him skate hard. It's not like he can't do it. We've seen games where he looks really good. And if it's sore, it's sore. But he just has to move his feet. And when he moves his feet, good things happen. So I'm going to say that we got to stop at he's hurt. I think that played a part, certainly, in working his way back. But too many times where he can make plays, injury or not, he's not making those plays. And it does hurt the team. So he's got to move his feet more.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's tough because it looked like he was finding a little bit of a groove in the beginning of the season. And then he gets hurt. And he gets hurt significantly for a long time. And he doesn't really get to establish himself with the team, establish his confidence. So it could be a head thing. I mean, maybe the best thing for this guy is to just get to the end of the season, get the summer, get a reset. Maybe he needs
surgery too. Who knows? He's been dealing with.
Right. It's possible that he could be playing at 80%. We don't know, but maybe the best thing for him is an off season. I mean, I remember going back a year and saying how promising the off season looked with a full training camp with Patrick Waugh. Here we are. So it may or may not do anything for him, but maybe that's the best thing. Get him to the summer. Get him to really rest, his body, and maybe, if he can stay healthy next year, we see a different Anthony Duclair.
And he's not going anywhere, so they need him to be a factor.
Year 1 of 4.
They want him to be a factor. Yeah. They need him to be.
Jonathan Doe asks, what value, rights or otherwise, does Sipikov have this summer packaged with a trade?
They're not. I don't know if they're going to trade Sipikov. First off, he signed a 1-year ELC, so he's a pending RFA, which means that they still have his rights. I wouldn't move him. I think he struggled enough, which helps the Islanders. Like if he came out and had a dominant year and his agent says, I want X amount, whatever it is, that's going to be tough. Then you have to decide, okay, is it worth it? But he hasn't been good enough where he could ask for that much. So, and I think we saw him be such a playmaker this year when he is he was a pure goal scorer in the KHL. And you think, and Hickey said it early in the year, at some point it's going to balance out. I think 1 year in the NHL, he's got to get a feel. One, the schedule is a lot longer, a lot more games. He's getting accustomed to that. I think he's looked really good in that fourth line role. I mean, the turnaround from the fourth line was a large part because he's making plays and setting up teammates. Right. But if he could find that scoring touch, I mean, this guy's a two-way threat and could do it all for you. So I don't think they should be shopping middle. I think that would put the team back a step. When you get a guy like this at probably, let's say it's $3 million, $3.5 million, whatever it comes down to.
7 years.
Yeah. And maybe, but I think he has a lot more that he has to prove, but I think he'd get there. So I think it would be really foolish to move him. Value-wise, I don't think it's amazing value because he's a major question mark for whatever team brings him in. We don't know enough. I don't think we saw enough, but I think the potential is there where if you're the Islanders, maybe a 2-year deal, a bridge deal, whatever. He's already, 26, I think he turned this year. 20s. I think he's 26. Yeah. So he's not like 30 where it's like, he's one of those KHL guys. So I think it's a no-brainer to bring him back.
Yeah, he's worth at least another look next year.
Pensy asks, what moves do the Islanders make in the offseason if they make the playoffs or not? What kind of players could we see come to the island?
Well, you heard Dan Rosen. They need to go get a legitimate threat. Now, the problem with this offseason is everyone has more cap space in theory with
Mitch Marner.
Yep. Nikolai Ehlers would be perfect for this team. He brings the speed, the finishing. But then it's also, those Brock Nelson, John Tavares, but you have all these guys that are going to be free agents.
Bring them all back.
But every team's going to want these guys. Yeah. And what you might have to do is through trade, the draft, where the Islanders traded a first-round pick and got Romanov. Can you do that with a forward who's shown promise on a team that can't keep him and try to go that way? That's the problem when you lack enough cap space and also lack assets. Like Duclair is one of those players. They tried him on the top line. He gets hurt. Who knows what kind of year he has if Barzal stays healthy? We don't know.
And he stays healthy, yeah.
Right, but he was supposed to be that top line guy when he's not a top line guy, but you're trying to turn him into. So the Islanders will probably have to go that route, even if they can't land a top guy. And that would be an unfortunate pill for Islander fans to swallow if they can't get that top guy. We always say it takes 2 to tango. Now, the Islanders can dangle that first-round pick and do what they did. And Romanov, they took a chance on Romanov. It paid off. It's not a guarantee they do that again. And unfortunately for the Islanders, with their roster and not rebuilding, it's hard to take a chance. And like you trade your first-round pick and it doesn't work, you're in trouble. So, Mitch Marner would be amazing for the Islanders to get, Nikolai Ehlers, but again, all these teams are going to be trying to get these guys. You have to have a C option that could also be beneficial as a top 6 guy, or go out and go in the trade market and find players that, hey, maybe they're trying to move it salary-wise, or they're a team that's rebuilding that they just don't need this guy right now. Lou has a lot of work to do. It's a huge summer for Lou every summer, but if they miss the playoffs this year, I don't think Lou's getting fired. I don't think Pat's getting fired. If this team, we've seen what this team is. And without Brock now, we've seen it. Even with Barzal healthy and Brock knock on, does this team make the playoffs? Who knows? So a lot of work ahead for Lou in the summer, but he has to make one of those trades where you think, wow, it can't be a middle 6 signing and hoping that a top line guy works.
It's a summer where Lou, heading into it, has definitively said there will be changes this summer.
I think you got to move a guy in the back end. I think you do.
Sure. Whereas in the past, I think we were more guessing.
Right.
Does Lou have intentions on making changes? He's now said he does. So now we get to see if he's going to put his money where his mouth is and what he can do.
Well, just harping on, you said you don't think Wa's going to get fired or anything. Gary asks, is it time to move on from Wa?
It's so hard to gauge Wa because of the injury. Again, he has not, I'll be the first, he's not done a good enough job in certain moments. We expected a full training camp. Hey, the power play needed to be better. Their breakouts at time needed to be better. Finishing, I know he's not the guy that finishes, but slow starts to games, which has been a problem under a handful of coaches, right, for this group. I don't think they've gotten better in a lot of areas, but you can't ignore the injury. I mean, Patrick Roy's his system, it's clear as day that his system with mobile defenders, which they brought in, and that's helped a lot. I think the personnel matters. His system is perfect at creating chances, and a team that's very talented, like him in Colorado, how many goals this team would score if he was their coach, because he creates those chances every game. His system works in creating the chances. Team doesn't finish, but it's also a game of adjustments. That system's not working. You got to tweak it. And I don't think Wa has tweaked it really at all. But I just think it's so hard to look at this season and every defenseman got hurt. All the forward injury they got hurt.
Yeah.
Like, how do you judge it? This has been a season of what ifs. Wa's tenure has been a season of what ifs. So I think you have to run it back because you move on from Patrick Wa now. All these players now have learned how to play that system. The guys you brought in have tried to change their game. Now you're changing the system up. It's like a rookie quarterback in their first couple of years, getting 5 different quarterback coaches, and you struggle every year.
And to his credit, like we said before, and we've said in past shows with Dan Rosen earlier tonight, this is a team who has not quit. They're not necessarily getting the results, and that's probably because of injuries and the personnel that they have on the team right now. But one thing we do know is Patrick Wa's a guy who can motivate a team to play. Now, maybe it also plays into the character of the players because they have to want to do it too. But you see teams giving up on coaches and checking out all the time. You can maybe look over at Madison Square Garden to see what's going on over there with all the talent over there.
Give up on the GM there too.
Whatever the case. But the point is that that's a team who, there's no way the Rangers should be in the position they're in with the talent that they have, right? They won a President's Trophy last year.
It's different.
And now they're they're out of a playoff spot at the moment, essentially, right?
How do you quit on Patrick Waugh? Like, I think it's impossible.
That's fair. He might beat you up.
He might quit on you first.
That's also possible.
No, but seriously though, like the motivator that he is, I've never met a guy that hates losing more than he likes winning. I mean, you see it. He hasn't been the lethal force that we saw with Colorado when he was a player. We saw it his first game behind the bench against Dallas last year, screaming. We could hear from the press box. He toned it down. I'm assuming Lou played a part in that.
Maybe.
But man, does he hate to lose, which is why he's so hard on Engvall, because he knows, look what happens when Engvall plays so well. Like he does. I don't think he can understand teams not giving 100%, and that might play a factor this summer when certain players leave. But yeah, I don't think he's the problem. I think it's always been the personnel. The coaching staff has had its issues, but his system needs a specific amount of talent. And I think Lou did a good job when all the D went down. He brought in guys that play the WA's system, stretch passes. D'Angelo's been perfect. Boquist, perfect. You see, actually, notice today, Romanov with the stretch pass. He must be, I mean, what D'Angelo does is contagious, but WA must be saying, we got to get the puck up the ice. We got to do this. We got to do that.
Yep.
Chain is everything. So I think personnel impacts WA immensely. I mean, we saw it when they signed Engvall, when they brought up Engvall and Martin, and Waugh kind of showed a little frustration with that. Like he knows what he needs, and obviously when he was with juniors, he's the GM there too. So it's much easier for him to make decisions.
Right.
I'm not even going to bring up what everyone wants me to bring up because it gets me in trouble. But Waugh needs to have, Waugh is going to be an instrumental part with Lou this summer, like we saw with Duclair. Did it work out this year? No. Is Duclair a bust for this team? I don't know. We don't know. We didn't see enough. But if Lou's going to go out there and get an elite player, Waugh's got to check off on it because it needs to be a player that not just skates around, but a guy that does what Waugh needs him to do.
And if it doesn't work out, then Waugh starts to run out of excuses.
Right.
Yeah. CGS wants to know, are there any contract buyouts coming in the offseason?
I think so. I don't think this really changed. We've talked about it a lot. You don't want to buy out Engvall because that's a 10-year buyout. You don't want to buy out Scott Mayfield because it's a 10-year buyout. But with Scott Mayfield right now, I think you can move him.
I agree.
I really do. People could argue that, but I know at the deadline, like Toronto is interested. He has a foul no trade. That being said, you think he waives it if he's not going to be a starter next year. Pierre Engvall, I mean, no one's going to take that contract. So your choices are give him another chance. Hopefully he ends hot and try to see him win a job. But if he doesn't win a job out of training camp, you could bury him in the minors, but he makes $3 million. So you have to bury 1.15 of that, which means 1.8's on the books. And if for a player not playing when the team always is in a cap situation, that's 1.18. It's important. Like you want to get that off the book. So you could buy Pierre out. I think that might be the route the Islanders do go. So I think you see probably one buyout.
Okay, I see with
the
numbers on these contracts, like I almost feel like it's not worth the buyout just because of how long you extend them for, right? I almost feel like if you figure out that one or both of these guys just aren't going to be a part of the future, my first instinct would be to demote them if you can't find a deal for them.
Yeah.
Because you're still paying some money towards the cap, but it's for less time and it's comparable in cost.
Right.
Because again, a $3 million contract and a $3.5 million contract, essentially you're burning out 33% of that, more or less, give or take, right? So I feel like you deal with that for the few years, not few, but the remaining years that you have with those guys rather than extend that over even more years over the course of time. But who knows, because now with the cap going up, maybe, Lou kind of changes the way he was looking at it, I
was just going to say, with the buyout window, and there's a buyout window, I think, before the start of the season, you don't have to be cap compliant until day one. So if the Islanders go out and get a player and they need $1.18 million in cap or whatever the cap space they need, and they're like, well, Engvall didn't make the team out of camp. We need this cap space for this year to fit this guy in their contract. Then obviously that changes things.
Okay, so just to clarify, there are buyout.
I think we'll see.
I'm more of a no. He's more of a yes.
I think we'll see one.
Yeah. Oha Johnny asks, for Yzerman, when do you think he joins the team? After one more year at BU?
What year is it? No.
2 years.
I would say 2. There's no point in rushing the kid. If you believe in his offensive talent, you need Jay Pandolfo helping him with this two-way game and play away from the puck. And unfortunately, right now, Bridgeport's not a safe spot for these guys, and I wouldn't force
him far away from Bridgeport until you can pad that place. Yeah,
and that goes with all the college guys they have. I would give him a couple of years.
MJ Beckman asks, are we happier if the Rangers get in and then trounced by the Caps in the first round, or they miss and we risk seeing the NHL rig the lottery by giving them a few more ping pong balls?
I was about to say, at least if they get in, there's a lot less chance of, it removes the chance of them getting Higgins, right? Because I think that would be...
Higgins is going to fall. Yeah, I mean, they probably won't get him. Higgins is probably looking at like 3 or 4 now in the
Is that right?
Yeah.
I haven't looked at that lately.
I mean, he scored a ridiculous goal in overtime the other day.
Yeah.
John and Tavares going to wrap around. But... I mean, I don't think Islander fans want to see the Rangers in the playoffs because, on the off chance they get smoked.
They click.
To be honest, I think the Capitals are a first-round exit.
Interesting.
So I think whatever team plays them, they're losing. So I don't know if Islander fans want the Rangers to be even given a chance.
Well, if that's the case, then have the Islanders get in, and there's your problem solved, and beat the Caps in the first round.
Easy as that. 8-0-1 in their last.
There you go.
Al72 asks, is it me or has Sorokin regressed in the last 2 seasons?
I don't think it's fair to say regress. Everyone loves analytics, and I can't stand them, to be honest. Especially with goaltending, it doesn't matter what. No offense to Darcy Kemper, but I'm going to throw him here under the bus. Wouldn't call him a Stanley Cup winning goaltender, but in the big moment, he made the big saves. Who cares about your stats? And I think for Sorokin, I don't think he's regressed. I think the workload and just I think he's tired at times late in the season, but you look at his stats, and his stats won't show you that he went on a hot streak that got the Islanders back in the playoff conversation. No one's going to remember that when they look at his stat line at the end of the year. But that stretch mattered. That got the Islanders in a spot where they needed help. And of course, last few weeks he's been better. I don't think he's regressed. I don't know if we saw one really good year from him. So maybe that was just the outlier for him.
I think the ability is still there, and it always has been. I think what I'm starting to wonder is is it simply just the workload, and is it because he's had the bad luck of his backups getting hurt and him being forced to take on more games than he probably should have, or is it more of a mental thing where he's there's something going on with his mental preparedness? Because you look at some of these goals and it's like, okay, is it because he was tired from starting too many games, or was it because he wasn't focused?
And the only way to find that out is to not make him, have a season where he has a backup that could play. You don't have to play Sorokin, especially early in the year. The Islanders tried to go back and forth, but then Varlamov gets hurt, and you call up Hogberg, you don't really know what he is. Why even said I didn't really know if I could trust him. He goes in that Pittsburgh game that we were watching, and he plays really well. And then, I can trust him. And then as soon as he goes on that run, he gets hurt. And I think for Sorokin, whether it's Varlamov, Hogberg, or someone else, give Sorokin 2 out of every 3 to start the year. But even Rosen said, you need a better team around you where you're not in February having to play him every game to get in.
Right.
How good can Sorokin be in a playoff series when he doesn't play the final 28 of 30 of a season? So I think it's up to the Islanders to prove that Sorokin is the guy. I don't think it's up to Sorokin at this point because he needs to be given the opportunity to breathe. And I think he's, you feel bad for him because he gets a short end of the stick with the fans on social media ripping him.
Yeah.
And it's like he's doing what he can. It's not like a lack of trying, but at some point, maybe he's just not a 60-start goaltender. And if that's the case, you want to figure that out right now. You don't want to figure out when he's 33, 34, where he is going to regress. He's in his prime right now. Help him out and make him be better down the stretch because it's got to be tasking mentally and physically on him where you got to be perfect down the stretch. And, of course, when goalies have to be perfect, they're usually not.
Oh, hi, Johnny asks, who is most likely to be bought out or traded, Pelech, Mayfield, or Pulock? Also, if you had ultimate roster control, who would you move or trade?
So the problem with the back end, which I think we're going to see changes from, Pulock's got a full no trade for another year, and Mayfield's got another full no trade for another 2 years, I think. So in theory, the easier one to move, you could probably say Pelech. That being said, I think Pulock is the easiest one to trade in terms of value. Pelech, defensive defenseman, but has also regressed. Pulock, we see what he could do with the shot, maybe in a different system, not being the top pairing, maybe not even be a second pairing.
You just need to make the goal bigger.
Yeah, or accuracy. But I think out of those 3, I think Scott's the most likely to move because he's going to probably wave. I don't know if Pulock would wave. Because Pulock probably still is a starter on this team if he's back. Yeah. And maybe it's a bottom pairing. Like he's been playing bottom pairing minutes right now. And if that's the case and he's your third pairing and other guys step up, then that's okay. Yeah. But if Scott's not going to be in the lineup, it makes no sense to me as a 7th defenseman.
I do think that names like Boquist and D'Angelo are going to make things for the defense a little more interesting than maybe we expected because I don't think there's any – you've already talked about Boquist and I don't think there's any arguing with what D'Angelo has brought to the table for this team. If we're just looking at it purely from a hockey point of view, the guy has stepped up. The guy has played very well. He's been excellent on the offensive side of the puck, putting up points. So if this is a match, if he's happy being an Islander, the Islanders are happy with him, and maybe the nonsense is behind him, I think you have to take a really serious look at bringing him back.
And I think, too, the other guy asked, what other moves you make? Like, I think Pajot is going to be moved to the draft. With Cal Ritchie coming in, Pajot's clearly not a number 2 center. Not his fault. He's been put in a spot where he hadn't played in years. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But with Cal Ritchie coming in, with Cizikas probably not to be moved. Maybe he is. He has no trade protection. Yeah. But if Horvat and Barzal are going to be separated, there's your number 2 in Barzal or Horvat, whatever it is. If not, you hope that you get a number 2 this summer. So I think Pajot, he's been an absolute warrior for this team, but given value, face-off numbers going to have a career high. I think he has value. Also, Edmonton Oilers were a team interested in him at the deadline. Mm-hmm. No retainment wanted to happen on the Islanders' point of view, so maybe he would have been traded there. But I do think he's moved because I do think he has value.
Well, I think we got to wrap it up. We're getting pretty much to the end here, unless you have a quickie. But other than that.
How about this? DTMR asks, will Brendan Burke go to the dark side and replace Sam?
No. I really don't think so.
Okay, that's good.
Well, there
to
you
hear.
have it.
Hopefully, yeah.
That's the positive news of the day.
As long as there's not too many zeros at the end of the check, I think we're going to be okay. Maybe you're more worried about him going to baseball, right? He's doing a lot of baseball, right?
But so the Yankees hired a guy full time for radio, so I think he's safe from that.
All right, so Brendan and Butchie, the team stays together. All right, well, folks, if we didn't get to your questions during Questions Brewing, we apologize. We'll try to get to them next week, but we appreciate it. Thanks to everybody who did get their questions in. That'll do it for Questions Brewing. And before we go, I want to remind everybody about the Hockey Night in New York Patreon. Go to patreon.com/HockeyNightNY for exclusive content featuring Q&As, columns, videos, behind the scenes, merchant partner discounts, and even an invitation to hang out with us here at Florida Media, where we air the show. It's a great way to support what we do here, so please check it on out. And one more reminder for Borelli's Tap Room, Thursday, April 10th, Islanders versus Rangers. We'll see what kind of meaning it has. It looks like there will be playoff implications. Either way, come on down for a great time. We'll have a lot of fun. And old friend Tony Stabile will be sitting next to me as my co-host, so we'll reminisce a little bit and have a great time there. So come on down. And what's that?
And I'll call in.
And Stefan Rosner's going to call in from UBS.
Yep, from the Stan Fischler press box.
From the Stan Fischler press box. So with that, folks, we're going to wrap this thing up. All right, I want to send a big thanks to Dan Rosen of NHL.com for hanging out with us. A great spot from him as always. And of course, want to thank our wonderful sponsors, starting with Main Street Board Game Cafe, located at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. Find out how to unplug your game at mainstboardgamecafe.com. Also, a big thanks to Center Station Bar and Grill. Head on down to 279A Sunrise Highway in Rockville Center for Isles games, live music, karaoke, comedy shows, and more. They do it all. And a big thanks to Razor and Kniff Attorneys at Law. Nobody likes going to court, but if you have to, call 212-LAW-1500 for a free consultation. And last, but certainly not least, a big thanks to Tovey Hockey, creators of the Diamond Air Blade. Go to toveyhockey.com to check out their great products and use promo code HNINY10 for 10% off your order. And now this is the part where, Stefan, I ask you where you are. Where's your content?
Right here.
Where can we
Hockey
find
Night
it?
New York on Sundays. Stefan Rosner, Stefan_Rosner, STEFEN_ROSNER on X. The Almonters, Monday through Friday newsletter, and also exclusive content up the wazoo every day. I got something cooking over there. And the Hockey News, Islanders site, and NHL.com.
Jake, the Snake Radanis, now that your WWF career is over, where can we find you?
That's right, it is over. You can find me on X at Jake Radanis, JakeRadonis.
Very nice, very creative. You can follow myself at Shawnee Hockey on Twitter. You can follow the show on all social media platforms at Hockey Night NY. You can check out the website at HockeyNightNY.com. And I didn't ask before, but please rate, review, and subscribe to the show at YouTube, at Apple Podcasts, at Spotify, and wherever you consume the show, your favorite place. Please let us know what you think, what you love, what you hate, and what's mediocre, and everything else. So with all of that out of the way, for Stefan Rosner, for Jake the Snake Radanis, for Jay Belsky and Edzo behind the glass, we've been Hockey Night in New York. I've been Sean Cuthbert. Have a great rest of your Sunday night.